Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Anne O'Connor and I'm the Employability Advisor here in the UL Career Service. I have created this short video today and we're going to discuss disclosure. You're probably asking, what do I mean about disclosure? So in this context, what we're talking about when we're talking about disclosure means informing someone or to make the information known, in this case, your employer, about your disability, specific learning difficulty or mental health difficulty. So basically it's deciding to disclose your disability to an employer. And one thing I'd like to note is deciding to disclose is your choice. Okay, and when you are thinking about this particular topic, and you're trying to weigh up the decisions or weigh up the pros and cons of disclosing, hopefully at the end of this video you'll have a better idea of it. So what we would advise in the career service is you need to weigh up the benefits of reasonable accommodations. We'd always ask students, well, what reasonable accommodations do you require in the workplace? And is there a benefit to letting your employer know in order to get these reasonable accommodations? Also, it's really important to weigh up, well, the workplace and the work environment that you're going to be in. So will you require access to that building? With starting later in the morning, is there machinery in the environment you're going to be working? There's lots of different work environments and that needs to be taken into consideration. You may also want to take into consideration the awareness against the cost of labeling. So, disclosing this information, um, are you go will it be seen, I suppose, negatively by the company, or are you maybe potentially looking at being maybe labelled? And that my final point as well is maybe looking at differential treatment or the potential of discrimination for disclosing this particular information. So you can see there alone that there is some benefits, but there's also some cons in relation to disclosing your disability. So I'm going to take you through this presentation and you'll be able to weigh that up as you're going through and deciding, okay, is disclosure something that is going to benefit me when I am looking for a job? So why would you want to disclose? I suppose most importantly, what I would say is if you don't disclose your disability to an employer, then there can't be any reasonable accommodation to be put in place. So really, when you are considering the whole disclosure, I would really ask you to consider, well, what reasonable accommodations do I need? Also, your employer may need to know medical information in case something happens. So maybe you have epilepsy or you have diabetes, and if something happens to you at work, maybe the employer needs to be able to inform the medics. They may be able to administer some particular medication. You may need a piece of software on your computer, so you may use voice recognition software. You may use software that reads text for you. You may use software that enlarges the print for you. So if you don't disclose the information, then the employer is under no obligation to provide this software. You may use an Irish language, sign language, and need an interpreter. And you may need time off for medical appointments. So you may have essential medical appointments that you have to attend due to your disability, and you may need time off. So there's very practical reasons where you may need to inform your employer about your disability. And I suppose just considerations. So once you have thought about, okay, well, what reasonable accommodations do I need? And can they be provided? Then I suppose the other considerations you need to decide, well, what are you going to disclose? Do you necessarily need to disclose what your disability is, or maybe just how it impacts you and what accommodation you need to, I suppose, get over the impact of that particular condition. Um, though in some contexts they need to know all of the information depending, so it's very personal. You may also decide or look at, well, when will you disclose the information? There's different times along the recruitment process. Some people choose because of the accommodations they may require that once they're called for interview, they may inform the employer. So that may be access, they may need an interpreter, they may need an alternative format to the interview. So they may disclose at that point. And they are only disclosing what they need for the interview. Some people may decide to disclose themselves at the interview. They feel that would be appropriate for them. Some people decide that they would like to source the job, and if they feel the reasonable accommodation is quite minor, then they would inform the employer before they start. And some people make the decision not to disclose anything at all. And I suppose the downfall from that is if you don't disclose anything, there no reasonable accommodation can be put in place. Another thing to consider is who are you going to disclose to? And this is really important because this is your information. You're under no obligation to hand that out to everybody. So you may decide if you're going to disclose that you are only going to disclose to the HR team because they're the only people that need to know. You may decide to broaden that out and decide to include the HR team and your direct line manager as the people that need to know. And depending on the context and depending on the circumstances, you may also include that to be your team members if you feel it's necessary. And then we also discuss with students around this, so how are you going to disclose? A lot of people feel comfortable doing it face to face or over the telephone, but what we would always say is that you should follow up with an email so that there's actually a record that you've made this formal disclosure to the company. And we would really encourage everybody to do that, and just for yourself to keep a record of it as well. So as you can see, there is a lot to consider when you are thinking about disclosing a disability to an employer. There is definitely some pros you get if you need the accommodation in order to be able to perform your job to your optimum. Definitely considering disclosure. You may not necessarily have to disclose everything. You may just need to disclose how it impacts you and what accommodation you require. Also really important just to recap who is you going to disclose that information to. So that brings me to the end of my little presentation today. If you would like any additional help around this particular area, you can contact me directly. So my name is Anna O'Connor and I'm the Employability Advisor in the UL Career Service. You will be able to find me on our website, and I can discuss this with you in a little bit more detail. Just here in the additional resources, I've listed out some other places you can go to read up and get more information. So AHEAD has a lot of information on disclosure, dyslexia.ie also. The British Association of Dyslexia has a lot of information. Mental Health Ireland, spunout.ie, epilepsy.ie, and asiam.ie also have got really good information depending on the disability you have. It would be good to link in with your body that you would go to for other information in relation to treatment or anything like that. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen to it. I hope you found it of benefit. And like I said, if you do want to discuss this with me in more detail, you can contact me in the Career Service. Thank you very much.